BOKS are playing the All Blacks at Wellington. We spoke earlier in the week just before a very, very different Springbok team than we expected was named. And so we're doing something a bit different here. We thought we'd do a preview. And so with me again is Nick Mallett and Gavin, Gavin Rich, and we're going to do it a bit differently this time. I'm going to start off with you, Nick, maybe. I'll let you know before. You've seen the team now. You've seen what they're going to do. They're obviously facing down two defeats out of three in the Rugby Championship. What team talk would you give this team as they go into this test?
Yeah, listen, I mean, they're going to be certainly up for this game, so you don't have to do too much motivational talking, I don't think. But I think you've got to emphasize what an opportunity it is for us. It's an opportunity for this team in so many ways. First of all, it's an opportunity to right the ship, to get us back and in with a chance to defend our Rugby Championship title. If we win this weekend and we beat our perhaps with a bonus point each, we're in the mix. It's a massive opportunity for a lot of youngsters who've been given a chance to prove that they can perform, and in a cauldron, in a very, very tense, difficult situation. But don't look at it as something that's fearful. It's an opportunity to show your talents and to get it right, And I think it's an opportunity because everyone talks about the attacking side, nature of our backline, but it's a big opportunity for them also to prove that they can defend well. That it's not just a Daylander, Creel, organized Pollard a defensive lineup that can stop the All Blacks. They should be able to prove that they can as well. And then almost the most important thing, if we want to win this game, it's an opportunity for our 9 and 10 to prove that they can read a game and take the right decisions at the right time. So that's Reinach, who's got lots of experience, and Sasha, who hasn't, but he's got a lot of talent. So it's a question of how are they going to pick at the right time, pass at the right time, hold on to the ball and take it into the tackle, play the forwards up, play behind the back, little cross kick, little trip. All those decisions are 9 and 10. They've got to make those decisions at the right time. So lots of opportunity, and get out there and enjoy yourselves.
Jeff?
Yeah, well, Brennan, it's interesting to me. We've basically got three Stormers players at half, fly half, and at inside centre, like the key positions in the backline. And in a couple of months' time, those guys would have all played together quite a lot. And then I might have different misgivings to the ones I do have. But those guys, me earlier today that Sasha and Damien Delende, Damien Willemse, let's call him Gaza. Those two guys played together for the Stormers against Connacht earlier in this year, and I think that was the game where Sasha scored 3 tries. The defense wasn't very good, and that's what Nick's saying is that I'm a bit concerned about the defense as well. The Stormers actually, I think it was one of those games where the Stormers scored 5 tries, and I think the opposition scored 4 tries. And if I remember correctly, the Stormers were actually a bit lucky in the end to win that game, because they kept allowing Connacht back into it. So those two were at fly half and at inside centre in that game, and that to me was an indication of how brilliant those two can be. So I'm very excited about us from an attacking point of view. But I'm talking about one game that those guys played together. Shasha's played a lot of his games before that elsewhere in the back line, and Damien, of course, has played fullback and fly half. They didn't play together that many times, so I'm just a bit worried. I'm a Liverpool supporter. And Liverpool have just brought a whole lot of new players. And although they're topping the league, and I think they'll stay top of the league till the end of the league, although they're topping the league, it's clear to me that they're requiring a bit of a bedding in period. And I just think that this team that Rassie has selected might need a bedding in period as well. If this was I'm thinking of a nation that doesn't have that much depth. If it was Scotland and this team was selected, I would say this is great. They're going to go on and win the World Cup, because I know that they would play together for the next couple of years. But with Rassie, you never know. I mean, these guys will play together now. And regardless of how the game turns out, we might not see them play together again as a combination for another couple of matches. So it's almost, for me, is like that's the thing that concerns me is we're not really betting in our combinations. If Rassie told me now that he was going to choose this team for the next 5 tests, then I'd be excited and say, well, by the time we get to whatever whatever game is in 5 test time, it might be Ireland or something, then I would be really confident that this team is going to grow. But I sort of see there's so much chopping and changing. That's what concerns me. And whilst I'm quite confident about Saturday, I'm also a little bit worried about that lack of bedding in. We haven't this combination hasn't played before. And where are they playing? They're playing in New Zealand against the All Blacks. That's a tough ask.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me as well, I saw a stat today that Russie's used 60 players already, or 60 odd players since the beginning of the year. And it's a bizarre stat, and we still we're not playing our best team technically in New Zealand. Now, I agree with you, Gav. If we're playing this team against anybody else, probably even Australia, even England, I would be a lot less concerned on the defense. And that brings us, I suppose, to the next topic is the threats, because New Zealand have a lot of threats, and the Boks are under. Well, I know there might be a sense that the Boks might be or okay, or Rassie might be okay with sacrificing a test. But I think you've been there before. Sacrificing a test against the All Blacks is never really going to be accepted in South African rugby. And if they lose, there's 3 out of 4 that they've lost in the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, quite right. I think when you talk about dangers. The dangers here are it feels to me like a bit of a watershed moment in this team's development. It is for the coaches. They've been trying to push a more expensive game, and then they went back to a conservative game against Australia. Then we had a conservative game plan against New Zealand, which was right. It was in the rain. Both of them were in difficult, tricky circumstances. We haven't played well for 3 games. We probably lost the game ourselves with mistakes we made this last weekend. So the watershed moment is it time now for those old players to move on and the younger players to step up? That is one big issue. And if they really perform well today on Saturday, and you suddenly find that there's a smoothness to our attack and there's a danger and a risk for the opposition whenever we have the ball in hand, then things will move on very rapidly, I think. And the second one, the one which I'm more worried about, is that in the enthusiasm to do well, we're going to overplay. And if you overplay like we did against Australia, and both Sasha and Marnie can do that, they can just feel, hang on, there is a bit of space. Let's have a crack. Let's have a go. And you just have to be temperamentally so sound at taking the right opportunities and not trying to score a try with every single time you touch the ball. So those 2 things, I think, the pressure is there now. 2 losses out of 3, you get 3 out of 4. That's not good in South African terms. And then also, are we going to overplay? Will we go from overplaying in the Australian game with Marnie to very conservative with Pollard to overplaying again? I hope not, but there is a risk. That is a danger.
Yeah. Brendan, what I don't understand, what I don't understand, and maybe I'll ask Nick a question here in making a statement, is that and we mentioned to you guys on WhatsApp last night, because I feel it is something that sort of, it confuses me. I'll be honest, it really does confuse me. If I was choosing a team that had such a point of difference from the previous team, where you're choosing a Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu who plays really close to the gain line, and he's really good at that, and you've got Damian Willemse, who to me is like a big point of difference in the Bok backline, in the sense that now we spoke about this a few weeks ago, we do have those 3 first receivers, in the sense that we've now got a fly half, the fullback does it, of course, in Fussy, and now we've also got Damian Willemse, who brings a huge sort of like difference in terms of like the variation that we can have on attack, the opportunities we can have, like from that point of view. So we could have had the All Blacks guessing this whole week and not knowing whether they were going to play against Pollard and Dale Lendy, or whether they were playing against these 2 guys, and to Damian's selection in particular, although I actually do see him as a number 12, I love him as a number 12. It's not one that was telegraphed. We at the start of this little segment, we were talking about like this isn't a team we would have predicted, but I think when we spoke on Monday, we did say it was possible that Rassie would go with Sasha at fly half, because he did go with him in Joburg last year against the All Blacks, and that was a huge test last year too. But I think we'd all probably agree that the Damien selection is a left field selection, although to me it's not really, because I think it's the way they should possibly going forward. It's almost like that second 5'8" that that New Zealand where they call their fly half the first 5'8" and then the second, having that sort of combination, two guys who can sort of read the game together. I think that's great. But why did Rassie choose his team to announce his team on Monday, when he could have still had the All Blacks guessing until today, and then possibly preparing in a completely different way for this test than they now would have been since Monday? Nick, I mean, can you sort of see the sense in that?
I can only see it from a squad point of view, that he wanted to just get it out of the way as quickly as possible. He didn't want on the Thursday people saying, what the hell's going on? Why are we playing this team against the All Blacks? Everyone's settled down and they're looking forward to watching this team now, because there's been, a logic to it, if you like. I think he did. If you go back with Rassie, he said he wants to give these players, young players, experience in really tough situations. You can't go into a World Cup in 2027 not having had any caps in. You can't, those caps, or if you have caps, it can't just be against Georgia and against Italy and the softer games. You need to do it against the tough teams. So I think he's used, 30 players on this tour, and he took 36 across. He would have used Jean-Luc Duplessis as well. So he's following on from what he said right from the beginning. He wants to give the youngsters experience, and he wants to rest the old guys so that they can prolong their careers. So in a funny way, we all sort of, we jump around when we see the team and we can't believe it. And why is he chopping it? But in fact, if you go back to what Rassie said right at the beginning, it's exactly what he's doing. He's actually he's not sacrificing a game in that sense, because I know what he thinks. He says no one owns any jersey. No one owns the 10 jersey. No one owns the 12 jersey or the number 8 jersey. You three guys are playing in that jersey, and you've got to, do your best to make the country proud. So that's what he wants. 3 players capable of playing in a World Cup final and not letting that jersey down.
I don't disagree with you at all, and I agree completely that I like the selection. I do. I'm excited by the selection. It's just that I feel that if I was Scott Robertson, I would want to send Rassie a note and say to him, "Thanks very much for letting me know, because now I've had a week to prepare."
What if Sasha and Rainer kick the ball up in the air all afternoon? That'll confuse them a bit.
Well, that is possible too. You're right about that. Yeah.
They haven't got bad kicking games. Both of them kick the ball really well. And teams that kick more than other teams generally win. So the side that kicks the most generally wins the game. And you have to transfer pressure. So I don't think I'm just really looking forward to it. It's a New Zealand team that's gained in confidence after that win. But they didn't do anything that blew us out of the water. I mean, that second try was a really well-worked one. The first one was far more Billy's fault than it was brilliant play by the All Blacks. I mean, he should have covered that guy, stayed on his feet, and stopped the threat. But, as everyone said, 14-0 down, it's hard to claw your way back. I don't think that's going to happen again.
I was going to say, Nick, we're going to talk. You spoke a lot about the backline, and you as well, Gav. The one thing we haven't spoken about is the forwards. So I'm going to ask you in terms of key players of this game. There's no Eben Etzebeth, Peter Steff, and Sia. Their roles obviously become huge. So does, I suppose, every member of that pack. Anyway, we've spoken about the backline now. So them, and then the other thing is Wellington's known for being a pretty. You talked about the kicking. The wind blows there in Wellington, and it sounds like it's been a very. I spoke to Jamie Wall yesterday, and he was saying the wind's been howling the whole week there. So if it's like that, it's going to make it very interesting.
Yeah, it will. I think, listen, backline, you can talk as much as you want about a backline. If they don't get ball on the front foot, they're toast. You unfortunately, backs depend on forwards, giving them good quality. Right, it all's going to depend on the performance of the pack. I think Visa owes the team a superb game. He's got to get us across the advantage line through his power, through his through his ability, and his performance against the TT or against the All Black pack and defenders like Severe is going to be really an exciting prospect in this game, because if he does get us momentum, our backline can play. We've got 2 number blocks, so it's quite interesting to see what role Loot de Jager is going to play. Is he going to be? I think Rassie mentioned that Ruan would still be making the calls, but with a bit of advice from Lurt. And I wonder who's going to jump at the front and who's going to jump in the middle. Probably and come in form. I don't has done all this season. I don't think he's made an impact. And then finally, the front row. I prefer to see Wilco Low starting and Thomas du Toit coming off the bench. I think Wilco Low needs to destroy Wilco Low and Ox need to scrum together early on to get a mental dominance over that All Black pack. And do the 60th minute when you're chasing the game is all well and good, but you want to be in the lead. And I think that ability. So I hope we see him for at least in this game.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, Nick, about that 2 number 5 locks, because it's interesting. I remember once, like, my colleagues used to always mock me because when Rassie first arrived at the Stormers, I think it was Adrian Fonza. You might remember Adrian Fonza. He brought him down from Pretoria, and Rassie kept on saying that we brought in a good front lock. And so then I kept on talking about front locks after that because I thought it was just a funny expression.
Yeah,
but if I go back in South African rugby history, I sort of think of some of those guys. There were guys who were clearly a number 5, which is obviously Victor and those guys. I mean, I could think of further ones. Whereas Lurt, and I might be wrong about this, I've got a feeling that when he first started playing for the Cheetahs, and the first time I remember he was directly against Eben in a game in Cape Town. I mean, like, how much does that make? I mean, because there's the other guys that Adrian Fonza I mentioned was clearly a front lock. Rocky's Burton. Like Mark Andrews to me. Somebody like Mark Andrews to me played often at number 5, but he could have been actually the enforcer at 4 as well. Yeah. So, how much of a difference does that make?
I think Alert is made for that front of the line out job. He's also made to hit. He likes hitting rucks and he likes cleaning and he likes carrying. So he's going to be the physical guy. I think the energy will come from Ruan, around the park and athleticism. And not that Alert isn't, but I think he's got more weight, more physicality, and can hit harder. So I think he's going to be fine jumping at the front. And you're right. Normally, Cobus Vista, for example, very difficult to lift that guy. So, but he was only a front of the line-out guy. Yeah. And you had to have someone like Stradham, I think, in the World Cup final, jumped with Mark Andrews at the back. So you have your athletic guy in the middle of the line-out, and your bigger, physical, heavier bloke at the front. And I think that's how they're going to work this weekend. And then when Ergia comes on, it's be quite interesting. Will he come on for Lut or will he come on for Nokia? Yeah. Because then again, he's also, he can jump at 4 or 5, in the line, the front or in the middle.
Because you do get those players. I mean, I'm thinking of the Stormers now again. Schikkerling. To me, Schikkerling is equally at home at both. So you do get those guys, and I do think of Lut as a little bit like that. I mean, if I was coach, if he was in my team and I had a sort of clear out and out number 5, like for instance Victor, I would go for that. But anyway, Brent.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say we're going to try and keep it concise here. We could probably talk the whole day about this, but let's go for straight. Just Nick, your prediction, then Gav to you prediction, then we'll close off.
Listen, I think it's impossible. This is an impossible game to predict. I went to box 7 points last weekend. It could be that again. It could quite easily be that again, but I think our forwards are going to produce the same sort of ball that we got, hopefully a little bit cleaner, a little bit better in scrum and line-out. Hopefully they don't mess our breakdown quite as badly as they did last weekend. Hopefully the referee is a little stricter on the line-outs and gives us credit for our dominant scrum. And then it's all about our backline. Now, the problem with the backline, if they play really well, we'll win by 7 points, I think, because I don't think it's a great New Zealand team. But if they defensively get it wrong, we could be chasing shadows and it could be a 20-pointer. We suddenly lose at 40-22 or something like that. And so I find it a very difficult game to call this one because you just don't know how this backline is going to gel.
Yeah, what I don't want to see is like the old days when the Stormers would play the Crusaders, and it would be a game where you say, geez, the Stormers really attacked well, but the opposition scored 6 tries, we scored 4, and the Stormers lost. I don't know why I'm using Stormers as an example. It could be any South African team, but maybe I'm using the Stormers as an example because historically they have played the kind of sort of DNA that we're talking about here. So I have a concern that we could end up like that. We slip tackles or something, and we end up like losing, but there's encouragement because the Tony ball's starting to come through. But the one thing about this game is that I sort of feel I completely agree with Nick. It's almost impossible to predict, because I sort of feel like there's a massive gamble, but a gamble that can, and the reason I say it's a gamble is because of what I said earlier about betting in the players that haven't played together before or whatever. But it's, you know, we haven't even mentioned Kane Moody, who can be brilliant, and who was like almost like one of the men, might have been the man of the match in that 35-7 win at Twickenham before the World Cup in 2023. This is a game where you know, if we were waking up on Sunday morning and the Boks had won by more than 10 points, it wouldn't completely surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, because I would think that we can really ask questions with that back line. And as I said, the 3 receivers and all that, Tony Brown would love working with this back line, I'm sure. But at the same time, if I woke up on Sunday morning and it was we were looking back at a game where we'd done well and everybody was encouraged by our attacking play, and yet we'd lost the game, I also wouldn't be concerned either. So I'm sorry, I'm sitting on the fence. Like Nick, I also went with 7 points last week, although I always had a funny feeling it was going to be a draw and didn't have the guts to say that publicly. I have a feeling and I think also like Nick, I always felt that the Boks would win one game on this trip. And after last week, I was convinced they would win this game. But then I thought that there would be more continuity from last week's selection. I think we'd be more sure about it if there was a little bit more continuity to this team. But there isn't enough continuity for me to say with any sort of certainty that I think the Boks are going to win. I am very encouraged, though. I'm excited about this team. This team excites me. And if I could go back to what I said earlier, if we were Scotland and we didn't have the depth that we have, and we could select a whole lot of other players and other options, I would say this team in 8 games' time is going to be brilliant. But unfortunately, well, it's not unfortunate. It's just that we do have a lot of players in this country that, you know, we might try lots of other things between now and 8 games.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gav, I was going to just mention when you mentioned your Stormers thing and them scoring 4 tries, Crusaders 6. The first thing that popped into my mind was somebody you mentioned last night in the WhatsApp chat, which is Dick Muir. Because I remember being at Ellis Park when he was the Lions coach, and they lost that game 72-65 to the Chiefs. And he was just going on afterwards like, geez, what a wonderful game. We were going so well. And we were like, Dick, you lost. Yeah, but we scored so many tries, and we don't want that, obviously. So, yeah, I agree with you guys both. There is a watershed moment. I'm positive. I think we're going to probably see something that we don't expect to see. Whether it's good enough to win this game in New Zealand, I don't know. I think I'm going to go for a Bok victory, and I think probably Kane Moody to score the winning try. I'm going to be bold there. Maybe be positive.
Good stuff.
Thanks, guys. We'll chat after the game. We're sure we'll have a lot to talk about. But enjoy the game. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Gav.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Enjoy the rugby.